Hello and welcome to Real Estate Today. I'm Laura Harbison, broker owner of Realty Executive Southern Nevada Properties. And I am here with Matt Hennessey of Benchmark Mortgage. And we're going to talk today about a couple of the most common reasons that we have clients tell us that they are waiting to get into the market. They're either waiting for the prices to drop, or they're waiting for the interest rates to drop, or they're waiting for both. So,
very valid concerns, right? I mean, everybody has emotions. Nobody wants to make the wrong choice. Having open dialogue like this gets us into a deeper conversation to understand the concerns. And starting with the thing I can focus in on, that is rates, right? Rates have been elevated for a certain period of time. Whenever we see, and they're not on a straight line, right? We do see them dip and we go up a little bit. So it's every single day it does this. What we have done historically is look backwards and say, what is that sweet spot that gets everybody off the fence? Because there's no shortage of buyers who have come to myself or yourself and reached out and says, hey, I want to go through the entire process. And then they're just pausing for a moment and just need a little bit more guidance and data to help support the decisions they want to make. And let's start with interest rates. What are you seeing in the conversations that your clients are sharing with you?
well, I mean, of course, everybody wants the 2% interest rate to come back, which, of course, I'm pretty sure that's not coming back in our lifetime.
Correct.
But, and so I do have conversations with them about the history of interest rates and why the interest rates right now are not terrible. But it seems to be, once it gets to about that mid-6 level is kind of where people start being more comfortable doing something. They'd really like to see it in the 5s, but
there's a direct correlation, right? Between when rates go down, everybody goes, I need to buy now. And if everybody does the exact same thing at the same time, values go back up.
Right. Supply and demand.
In our recent conversations, especially in the last couple of years, when rates did drop and everybody wanted to buy a property, whether it was refinancing or purchasing a property at that time, there was over demand, not enough homes. What did your clients experience when they were looking to purchase, or even some of your sellers? What were you experiencing?
Well, and that happened just about a year ago. We had that little dip, and all the buyers wanted to jump into the market, and then now we had multiple offers, we had bidding, we had paying over asking, but if they wanted a home, I mean, there were only so many homes for sale, and at that point, we actually had, we had less than we do now. So that it's just common sense that when there's more demand, that drives prices up.
My concern, just as an individual, first and foremost, was I had to watch my clients come outside their comfort zone when they didn't want to. So during the early 2021, 2022, when rates were so low and there was a shortage of inventory, individuals literally had to bid above the asking price many times, multiple offers. But I'll be honest with you, this one hits home for me is I had to make a decision right now. There's 5 seconds later and it's gone.
Can't hesitate.
And some consumers don't want to be put into that. And they would not purchase that property. They'll move on and like, oh, wait. And they saw prices going back up quite aggressively. So even when I looked at one of your properties recently, and it's fair to say whenever we look at conversations with the client of ultimate concern of do I buy now versus wait? We know that there's 2 ways, if I can nerd out for a minute, there's historical appreciation and forecasted. Forecasted is what we have in front of us that to anticipate where appreciation will be, but historical. If I go backwards in time and say, all right, what do we think over the next 5 years? Well, if you watched our last episode, we talked about, the reality is there's still population. If we go back to the average buyer now, average is 38 years old. It's moved up a little bit, which is
a little older,
which is interesting because they're either holding off for whatever particular reason. But if they're 38 now, go back in time and data, there were a whole lot of individuals being born now that need to have properties. So when we just look at that head on and say the consumer wants to purchase a property today, let's say one of your listings. And if I choose not to purchase, just realize the appreciation forecasted in historical for the next 5 years goes up about 4.5%. Let's just round it easy numbers for 5, even though I love 4, but makes it easier for my numbers. But it's about 20% over a 5-year period. So this listing here, it's gone up in value and I anticipated about $100,000, give or take, as the world kind of moves and ebbs and flows. But that is an important takeaway, is that values will continue to go up. So what are we really waiting for? Locking in a particular price on a property today, where we have the opportunity to refinance to a lower interest rate when that opportunity comes. Right. But at least I lock in the price of the home, because that's going to cost you more if you continue to wait.
You marry the house, you date the rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So because you can change the rate, but like you said, lock in the sale price, because the price is only going up.
And numbers don't lie. Here's the important facet that most folks forget is, it still costs money to live indoors, right? So we have to, whether we're renting versus whether we're buying, I always look at, okay, so if my house went up this much in value, that's great. But the return on my investment is rarely ever talked about. So if a client was just putting, say, 5% down on this particular property, that's, say, $20,000, but my value went up, right, 4 or 5% per year forecasted, that's on my investment, my $20,000, and maybe with your negotiating powers, we could try to get the seller to contribute to closing costs, et cetera, in today's market. Then that is a 400% return on my investment. You're not getting that in the stock market, not today, not the time we're writing this, of course, putting this together. But I think those are one of the biggest concerns of showing data for a client of, if you wait, prices are still going up. And especially if rates tick down into the low sixes, everybody goes into it and values continue to move away from us. So it's either going to cost us more today or in the future. Right.
Well, the increase in the price of the home will negate any savings on that interest rate.
Very true.
So that, it's better to, like you said, lock in the price. And then, if and when the rates come down, then you can refinance and have the lower rate, the lower payment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even if you go back in time, go all the way to, there was some data that was put together by the Case-Shiller Index. What that really means to us, and without nerding out, is it's the gold standard of home appreciation. So every economist looks at this for one specific reason to say, how was home appreciation over the last 20, 30, 40 years? Well, we went back all the way to 1941. This is obviously on a nationwide basis, but out of all those years, going back to 1941, 73 years, we saw home appreciation. 7 years, we saw a dip where it was actually a reduction. And then 1 year, it leveled off. So whenever we talk about this, we could always go back specifically to those dates in time that we were.
Yeah, because it's not a straight line.
Absolutely. But by and large, being invested in real estate, having two sources, which is a little bit of appreciation, for savings plan to pay down my principal, gets us to a point where we can smile and go, look at all the equity that we have in our property, how much wealth we've created for our families.
Right. Well, I had someone come to me yesterday saying that they had seen something that, there's a big wave of foreclosures coming, the prices are going to go down, and, that type of thing. And, and I was like, well, you have to understand that, there may be people that are distressed. However, because of the appreciation that we've seen over recent years, people have equity in their properties, even if they put the minimum down when they purchased it 5 years ago. So they are not in a position where they have to foreclose. They can sell and still get money back out. Maybe they've had something happen to their family, their job, this, that, because, obviously things happen.
We're still recovering from our economies over the last couple of years. So there were certain programs that allow them to stay in the property. But here's the beauty of that. Value still went up, just like you mentioned.
Right.
And the only reason we would ever see somebody, God forbid there's a specific reason we're not talking about, but majority of the time, it is somebody who has plenty of equity, fell on some tough times, probably has to make a good financial decision to either sell that property, reach out to the real estate professional and go, hey, I'd like to sell it. I ran into a rough patch. But I don't see a wave of foreclosures that's going to affect anyone, let alone values in our area.
Right. I'm even seeing because a lot of people during COVID and all maybe they had a forbearance. There was a period of time they didn't make their payments. Those didn't go away. They got tacked to the back end of the loan. Right. But we've had such strong appreciation over recent years that the appreciation has more than covered the forbearance, and then they still have some equity, which is
very valid point.
Yeah, which is great. So, not to say that there aren't properties that foreclosed many years ago that have been sat on by the banks. Now we are starting to see some of those come out. So, and I think that gives people the idea that, we're having foreclosures. Well, no, some of these foreclosed 5, 6, 7 years ago. The banks didn't do anything about any of it during COVID, et cetera. Right. And, now they are starting not to flood the market, but they are starting to put a few out there. Yeah. And so, I could see how that could give the public the wrong idea.
It's great information.
So, thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Today. I'm Laura Harbison, broker-owner of Realty Executive Southern Nevada Properties. And again, this is Matt Hennessey of Benchmark Mortgage. You can reach me at 702-777-1234. And you can reach Matt
702-810-1522.
So we'd be happy to hear from you if you have any questions, and hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.